To take a look at stories making the headlines in Nigerian newspapers, I have with me a journalist, Charles Ideho, and we also have social commentator Oladehinde Ariyo. Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast. All right, we head straight to the papers now, and I begin with the blueprint. State of roads. Federal government budgets 1 trillion naira for projects in 3 years. 504 billion naira released out of 890 billion naira. 650 billion naira from 2 trillion naira budgeted in 2019. All right, we move to the news direct. Insecurity, PIB, now a great concern. Senate President to set up Constitution Review Committee. All right. To the front page of the Daily Times now, Amotekun Southwest has no cessation plans. Fayemi says new security outfits meant to protect all Nigerian residents in the region. On the front page of the Daily Trust, as Revenue Commission plans review, Nigerians want package cut for public officers. And finally, on the front page of the Vanguard, our central security system has failed. Senate President says urgent restructuring of security architecture required. Rejig top hierarchy of security agencies, PANDEF, while federal government's pushing for community policing, SGF. All right, so many stories there on the papers, but then we'll be looking at the story that has to do with Miriam Sander. She was sentenced to death by hanging yesterday, and you know that this case has been on since 2017. November, yeah. And yesterday she was sentenced, and when you see the video that went viral, one would say that, have that compassion towards her. But then our correspondent was at the courts yesterday, and we have that report. Perhaps we'll be playing that now before we continue our discussion.
A sad day for Miriam Sander and her family as the judgment of her trial does not go in her favor. Sander, the mother of two, her mother and her other relative broke down in tears immediately the judge pronounced her guilty. Sander stood trial on a 2-count charge of culpable homicide. She was said to have stabbed her husband over alleged infidelity. She claimed Bello died when he fell on a broken piece of his shisha pot during an argument. Delivering judgment, Yusuf Halilu, the judge, said after putting Sander's testimony alongside that of 2 witnesses, the question raised was whether the shisha pot broke before or after the demise of Bello. The judge also heard that there was enough evidence, coupled with her testimony and statements to the police, that she fatally stabbed her husband to death in Abuja on November 19, 2017. He said the offense for which the convict was convicted was based on Section 221 of the Penal Code.
The long arm of the law have actually caught up with the offender. We say that the blood of the victim of crime is calling to the heaven and praying for vengeance. It is the responsibility of the police as well as the justice of the state to ensure that this vengeance is being carried out. And that's what court did this afternoon.
Very sad, even though a pathetic one, because of the fact that the defendant, that is the accused, has been sentenced to death. But the truth of the matter is that law has nothing to do with sentiments. If you go through the facts of this very case, it is vivid that the justice of the matter was actually served.
The judge ordered that she should be remanded in Suleja Correctional Service till she exhausts her rights of appeal. Helen Osamede-Akins, TVC News, Abuja.
Well, the judge said, the law has nothing to do with sentiments or emotions, and she is being remanded in one of the prisons till perhaps ahead. She has exhausted her right to appeal, but you have been following this case, Mr. Ariyo. Talk to us. In this case, justice been done, seem to be done?
Well, I wouldn't know what other name to give to it if it's not justice. As much as I don't subscribe to it, even the Bible says the soul that sinneth shall die. Now, when we were growing up, what we were used to seeing was violence from the male to the female. Over time, it's like the demon that is in charge of domestic violence relocated and took habitation in the heart of the women folk.
Really?
Suddenly, we started having cases of wives killing their husbands. And in the last 4 or 5 years, we've had several reported cases in different parts of Nigeria, Lagos, Ibadan, Shagamu, and everywhere.
It is an action that triggers a reaction.
I understand. You know, they say action and reaction, they are equal and opposite. Now, consequence on all of that, I came to a conclusion that you are better off to walk away, okay, rather than allow yourself to get to a point which I call the breaking point, whereby all the senses are lost and then you just do whatever you felt appealed to you, maybe in retaliation. Now, in all of these things, what are we looking at? Marriage is considered of two people who have grown from different backgrounds, exposures, education, cultural, all of that. Now, at the point that we come together, if it's not working, I no longer believe in for better, for worse. If it is not working,
walk away?
Yeah, instead of you returning to your family in body bag, take a walk. Live to stay alive.
All right. Let's get Charles's position to this now. The judge said he relied on the doctrine of last seen.
Which is very important.
Yes.
Because the woman is saying that she didn't kill her husband, but there was a threat from her that she was going to cut her, off the husband's private. She has threatened her husband before, they were going to stab her husband and so on. Even if she didn't do it, but when she was the last person seen at the point of the husband's death, and that is the doctrine of last sin. So she
the
is
person will
going
take
to be
responsibility.
Yes, it's going to be her word. I mean, nobody is there to say, oh, this is to present another angle to it.
Or
self-defense. She was the person, or self-defense, because she was the last person
at
that was seen at the scene of that
incident.
They call it culpable homicide. What we need to tell husbands, just to tie into what Ariyo said, husband and wives, is that the coming of the global telephony, that's a GSM, brought with it its own peculiarities.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So in those days when we were growing up, wives and husbands, even if a husband could cheat, there was no way a wife could easily know. But these days, you have messages that are on the phone, you have photographs shared, and so. But what I need to also let wives know is that it's not all photographs you see that were there, maybe put by the husband, maybe by a mistress or so. Because there are some groups you belong to, as I was saying to you, in the WhatsApp groups.
They send pictures.
They send photographs to those groups that will automatically download, and then the thing will be stored in your gallery.
Yeah.
So if you take your husband's phone that you want to look at it, you will see something. But the question is that
versa.
you will say, okay,
if a man wants to take the wife phone,
what I will advise this morning is that let us look at those telephones. My phone is to be my personal space.
That is respecting personal space.
My wife should respect my personal space. Why I'm respecting my wife's personal space? That's why the phone is not the family's phone. It is my phone.
As couples, we should have access to each other.
We do know that. But what I'm saying is that when in those days when you had Nitel lines, there's a box at home for family. When it rings, anybody could pick it. But when they want to call the whole, maybe the host family, for instance, or they want to call me, the phone rings, my daughter comes. You don't know who is calling. But this one, the phone is routed directly to me. So my wife want to call my wife, you call my wife. So it's personal space. In order for us to minimize, to mitigate all these incidences of killing and all that, we should respect each other's space so that we don't see what we don't want to see.
It is all right. Let's leave it at this point.
You want to wear my singlet or my boxers?
No, some women do. So
no. I mean, on that level. Therefore, give my phone space.
It's my phone. It's my phone.
I mean, if the woman cannot build that trust.
I would insist, will not agree with you because they feel you have become one.
Okay,
and so everything you share.
Before we run, let me quickly tell you. Sometimes when I'm in the bathroom, my phone rings. My wife brings the phone to the bathroom instead of answering it because she knows the phone is my phone.
It might be urgent and she might want to answer it for you, Charles.
No, but except she has to take permission for that.
Let's look at the newspapers this morning now. First of all is the blueprint. It says state roads, federal government budgets 1 trillion naira for projects in 3 years. The writer says 504 billion naira released out of 890 billion naira. 650 billion naira from 2 trillion naira budgeted in 2019. BMO blames poor state on budget delay. Where are the roads? PDP queries. APC chieftain calls for synergy among tiers of governments. The News Direct is saying here, insecurity, PIB, now a great concern, says Senate President. The writer says, to set up Constitution Review Committee. We move to the Daily Times. Amotekun, Southwest has no succession plan, says Fayami. Says new security outfit meant to protect all Nigerians residents in the region. The Daily Trust is saying, as Revenue Commission plans review Nigerians want package cuts for public officers. The Vanguard here says, our central security system has failed, says Senate President. And the writer says here, says urgent restructuring of security architecture required, rejigs up hierarchy of security agencies, says Pandev, while federal government's push for community policing. That's according to the SGF. Of course, we'll look at the story, the murder case, and of course it says here in the Vanguard, part of the Vanguard says, wife of ex-PDP chairman's son, Miriam sentenced to death by hanging. And that's what we're going to be looking at this morning on the newspaper review. Gentlemen, she has been sentenced to death by hanging. But looking at this situation, after then, or even before then, till now, we still have situations where husbands, men are being killed. Domestic violence is becoming the norm. One example that comes to mind is the one that happened in Ibadan, where a woman killed her husband. So,
lawyer. That lawyer.
See,
okay.
As a professional security practitioner, I remember reviewing so many cases, and I came up with a paper that I titled The Morning After. Now, I reviewed the case in Ibadan of the lawyer who in the daytime stabbed the husband. Okay. The landlord intervened, and the...
Okay, before we continue, we're going to take a report that was done on this situation. Now, Miriam Sander killed her husband, Biliaminu Bello, and now she will also die by hanging. Now, that's the judgment of the High Court of the Federal Capital Territory in Abuja. Justice Yusuf Halilu held that there was enough evidence, along with her testimony and statements to the police, that she committed the crime 3 years ago. Miriam Sander, the mother of two, her mother and other relatives, broke down in tears immediately the judge pronounced her guilty. Sander stood trial on a 2-count charge of culpable homicide after stabbing her husband over alleged infidelity. The judge said the offense which Sander was convicted was based on Section 221 of the Penal Code. All right, so let's have more on this. Of course, you're saying something.
Yes, as I said, I wrote a paper the morning after. I studied the case of the woman in Ibadan, the lawyer, who during the daytime stabbed the husband. The landlord intervened, and then they made peace, purportedly. By the time he came back in the night, because she still had the bitterness ingrained in her, she went on to stab the guy to death. A case of another lawyer in Lekki who, after killing the husband, still got a knife to cut off his private parts. Okay? And of course, the woman in Shagamu who went and bought a cutlass ostensibly to kill the husband and engaged a man who, of course, could have been her boyfriend. So the man came home, he was given dinner, entertained very well, and went to sleep. In the night, the woman and the boyfriend, they used cutlass to cut the man's head. It happened. And then the one in Benin, where an NNPC top gun, whose wife was dating their pastor, a younger lad, ended up getting pregnant for the pastor. And to cover their shame, they killed the man, put his body inside the boot of his car, and of course, they set the car ablaze. In the process, the pastor got burnt. In all of these cases, they were discovered. They didn't escape. And then, of course, they were sent for trial. Now, you want to ask yourself, why must they go that far? The singular thread that run among these is bitterness arising from unforgiveness. Nothing else. Bitterness arising. It's not about tolerance. It's not about compatibility. There is no way we will interface and will not step on each other's toes. But at the point where you are sensing unforgiveness arising from whatever, I will always advocate you take a walk. You live so that you can remain alive.
Well, unforgiveness, you say, but you're getting married. You should understand that there will be interface from time to time.
You see, let me tell you, growing up, the kind of counseling that we received when we wanted to get married is not the same as the watered down stuff that they have today. In any case, you've seen, especially in Pentecostal arrangements, unmarried pastors, counseling would be coupled.
All right, let's talk to Charles on this one. Charles, let's have your own take.
I think at the heart of this is poor parenting.
Okay.
Okay, because some of us who were fortunate to grow up in the 80s and 70s, we watched our parents and our fathers, were able to relate properly. And that taught us that you could as well live with another human being properly. Because at the heart of their relationship then was respect. Okay. At the heart of that was justice. Even though our fathers, I grew up on a polygamous home. But again, I hardly knew my mother was my mother because we were interrelating. My mother and the co-wives were also interrelating. Because my father was able to, I don't know how he balanced it. He was able to balance the love and share this.
Spread abroad.
Exactly. Equity. So we watched from that, which of course, some of us also are using today. But the life we live in today, a lot of things have crept into a system. You now find people who you don't even interface physically with. They are your friends on social media. Yeah. Okay, you can see a wife and a husband. They are sleeping on the same bed. The wife is chatting with a man in London. You are chatting with a man in Oron, in a Cross River State. You understand? So you now have virtual boyfriends and virtual girlfriends. And then when your wife happens to pick your phone and read through the messages, there's no way there won't be tempers flaring. So I think what we need to do is that proper parenting has to be introduced, whether it's introduced to the school curriculum system, to begin to teach people how to live. Because people who are marrying today, they are product of poor parenting. Okay, somebody who got pregnant, for instance, a lady of about 16 who got pregnant, and then raised a child on that same template of not being properly brought up. What is that child? What is that girl or that lady going to give the child? So the child will now run through the system, also get pregnant probably, and then you see this vicious cycle continues. So when they get married, the intolerance will creep in. The lack of respect for. So again, what he said, some of us who grew up as Anglican, though I'm now a Pentecostal member. Anglican in those days, if you were going to be nominated into the marriage committee, you would have spent a minimum of 25 years in marriage. Yeah. And your marriage has been tested. Successful. You have raised children, your children are graduates or so. You even have people who are civil servants. So once you sit on the board or on the committee of any marriage counseling, whatever you are going to be giving to those you will be couple is based on your experience. But today, as he said, people who are just 3 years in marriage or 4 years, because you are a pastor of the church, there's somebody coming to you. What are you going to give the person?
Does it have to do with religion or being a clergy?
No. But these people are either Christians or Muslims. They sound that they are Muslims, right? The question is that how much of counseling did she receive when she was into that? So you can't discountenance the function of counseling. Because all of us, we are supposed to learn from our parents. We are supposed to learn from those who are older than us. But those who are older than us, the question is that, are they properly brought up? So what are they going to give us? Will also help us in this decadent society?
All right.
For me, as a cultural promoter, a culture promoter rather, there's what I call the value system, which is entrenched in our culture and is passed on through the language. Exactly. But you see, most of the people who cannot speak their indigenous language, they cannot benefit, they cannot drink from the stream of that value system.
And wisdom, too.
And the wisdom that's inherent in it. So I will always say and advocate that we should go back to where we took off from. Go, make sure, because your language is your essence.
And the culture,
and
too.
that is what you are bringing to the table. Now, you learn your language, your culture, your tradition, and the customs through the language. Okay? So those value systems are missing in our society. Like he said, my father married 13 wives. There was no war in our house, no acrimony. I never saw my dad beat any wife or men fighting. He maintained that sanity. Like he said, how he did it, I don't know. But it was successful until today. Even after he had gone and the words have gone, we still be able to maintain some sanity.
Yeah.
So
for this generation, how do we bring back
this one? There's a problem now. The technological invasion, and the copying,
social media and all that,
and then the copying of other civilizations.
It's not helping us.
Okay, they badly affected us, whereby what we should hold there, it don't mean anything to us again. Okay,
let me quickly slip this in. When I was going on before we run, if I were somewhere, maybe in the public, and I was over talking, and my mother was talking about, it would just say Agbaboa. And once it says Agbaboa, I know that you said you are talking to
without talking.
My mother will look at you passing by. It won't call. It will say Agbaboa, and I will shut up.
That's a way my mother will look at you.
If you tell, will you tell your child Agbaboa? We don't understand.
That's the way my mother will look at you.
All right.
That look alone says a lot.
All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for talking to us on all of this. Thank you very much.
Head straight to the papers now, and I begin with the blueprint. State of roads. Federal government budgets 1 trillion naira for projects in 3 years. 504 billion naira released out of 890 billion naira. 650 billion naira from 2 trillion naira budgeted in 2019. All right, to the front page of the News Direct now. Insecurity, PIB, now a great concern. Senate President to set up Constitution Review Committee. And on the front page of the Daily Times, Amotekun Southwest has no cessation plans. Fayemi says new security outfits meant to protect all Nigerian residents in the region. On the front page of the Daily Trust, as Revenue Commission plans review, Nigerians want package cut for public officers. And finally, on the front page of the Vanguard, our central security system has failed, Senate President says urgent restructuring of security architecture required. Rejig top hierarchy of security agencies, PANDEF. Why federal government's pushing for community policing, SGF. All right, gentlemen, so many stories on the pages of the newspaper this morning, but we will be looking at Miriam Sander's issue. Okay, from the ruling yesterday, she was sentenced to death by hanging, but our reporter has details of that, so we quickly take the package. Miriam Sander killed her husband, just by way of bringing you a background to the story. His name was Biliaminu Bello, and now she will also die by hanging. That's the judgment of the High Court of the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. Now, Justice Yusuf Halilu held that there was enough evidence, along with her testimony and the statement to the police, that she committed the crime 3 years ago. Miriam Sander, the mother of two, her mother and other relatives broke down in tears. Immediately, the judge pronounced her guilty. Sander stood trial on a 2-count charge of culpable homicide after stabbing her husband over alleged infidelity. The judge said that the offense for which Sander was convicted was based on Section 221 of the Penal Code. All right, gentlemen, let's look at this now. Death by hanging. There was a debate on capital punishment at some point.
Nigeria is a signatory to the global accord that seems to abolish capital punishment.
And even state governors are no longer seem to be interested.
Every state that you go,
because at some point we're looking at that for kidnapping, when it was on the rise. But having this now, because we also see that a lot of persons under death row in prisons are still there.
But what we have now is that, if I use Lagos as an example now, the law here says if you are found guilty of being the kidnapper or an ally or associate in kidnapping, you go for life jail. But if the victim should die while in your custody,
then
of course, it's a capital punishment. But the point is, we have a lot of people on the death row. Why the governors are not willing to sign the death warrants, according to the public information, that they don't want to have blood on their hands. How far this is true, I don't know. But the consequences are the fact that our facilities are overstretched. You know, a facility built for maybe 1,000 people is now having to warehouse maybe 3 times or 4. The number. Including those who are awaiting trial. Making life a lot more unbearable when they are in incarceration. This, of course, for me is an aberration. Something has to be done about that. In her own case, she has the right of appeal, I want to believe, and they've said she should be kept in there until that is
she exhausts her right to appeal.
And if at the end of the day she's still found guilty and has to be hanged, the question now is, there is a huge number on the route. Is she going to join the queue or whatever? Because the psychological effect on the condemned people is not good enough.
Charles, let's get your thoughts to this aspect now.
When recently the government of Nigeria came up with a change of nomenclature that our prison system not going to be called prisons,
but correctional services.
Correctional center. So if you place that aside, side by side with the capital punishment, they can't mix anymore. Because if you send people into centers, you want them to be corrected so that they come back better persons. Why should you want to hang that person? So that's where I think the government should rejig that aspect. Let's totally expunge that portion of our laws that still prescribe the death penalty for people, so that everything can be correctional. But I think the wisdom behind it, even in the Bible, there's also, if you look at the Old Testament, even God recommended death. Well, there are certain degrees, certain categories of offenses you commit, you were supposed to die, and that was supposed to serve as a deterrent. When you know that.
But over time, we haven't seen that serve as a deterrent, because that's also one of the reasons.
No, I said the wisdom behind it was that it should serve
as a deterrent
to deter people from wanting to commit similar offenses when they know that death was awaiting them.
Yes,
but it didn't work. Yes. Yeah. So I think now two things we need to ask our government to do in order for us to level up the argument. The change of nomenclature now, correction center, no more prisons. We need to also look at vis-a-vis the population. Because when you sentence someone to death, for a number of years, the person is there. It's only, I think, since in recent treaties in 1999, only a single governor in Nigeria has ever signed the death penalty. It was Shomole in 2013, when there were 2 armed robbers that he signed. They be executed in Benin. Only that he's the only governor who has ever signed the death warrant in Nigeria. Amode was supposed to sign the one before he left. Amode said he didn't want blood in his hand. So we are looking at governors that are beginning to now becoming sentimental and becoming emotional in the function that has been
matter.
That is, function has been put upon them by the law. When you are doing something that has been given to you by the law, it's supposed to be devoid of emotion. Even judges have emotions.
Yes.
Judges have sentiment. But when it comes to delivering judgment, the judges will remove their emotions and remove their sentiment and deliver judgment according to the letters of the law. The governors are now saying, because they want to pander, they want people to pander to their so they are not saying, I don't want blood. Where is that in our statute book?
If you read the report officially yesterday, the judge, after pronouncing a judgment, he left for the chamber because the court became rowdy and there were tears, emotions were running riot. She left and then said she will be back to pronounce her judgment. So she left and then of course came back to do what she has to do. So in the same sense, governors as custodians of the power, as vested in them,
vested upon them
by the Constitution of Nigeria, they have no alternative. They have no choice. They just have to do what they have to do. It doesn't, your being governor should not be only on the side of celebrating Independence Day, declaring roads open or declaring bridges open. No. If the law says you sign the warrant, anybody that has been so educated should be given the meal.
Because the government is only,
questions-
the government is, for instance, if when Oshiomhole signed the death warrant, it wasn't Oshiomhole that signed it, it was the governor of Edo State.
That's
The
the
office.
Yes.
It was the office that signed it.
The office that
So you
signed
must
it.
remove the office from the president.
Because another aspect that a lot of people were talking about yesterday on social media was
Yes.
that how about police officers who commit extrajudicial killings? We don't see them come under this.
Well,
Go-
if you have enough evidence and you take them, I think in Nigeria, I'm not too sure. I think murder cases, the court of first instance at the high court or so.
Yeah.
But if you have enough evidence to drive the case through, they should also face the same.
Let me
same,
remind
same
you,
music.
there's a DPO that shot and killed somebody in Ogba during one election. I can't remember. the
Yes,
name.
about
Yes.
about
So
junction.
his case was confirmed and he was sentenced to death.
Death.
But whether that has been executed or not, we don't know. Which again, it leaves the process unterminated. Because that should be the final point whereby the case is put to rest. But if they fail to sign, then it's still hanging.
It's still hanging.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, we have to leave it at this point. Charles Ideho, Oladehinde Ariyo, thank you for your time on TVC Breakfast. You're watching TVC Breakfast and we're streaming live on YouTube. You can connect with us on Twitter using the hashtag TVC Breakfast.